Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be doing an in-depth Pyke guide for Season 10, so special thanks to Nathan for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to sponsor a video yourself, just email me at thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com. Right now it's just $30. I can do a guide over any champion, any sort of macro topic, micro topic, theoretical topic, whatever you want to guide on. I'll research it, I'll put together some good information for you, so just email me, let me know if you're interested in that. And if you're a member of the channel, then I'll give you a $5 discount. So if you're a member either through YouTube's membership system, the PayPal membership on the channel, or through a Twitch sub, then I'll give you $5 off, so then it'd only be $25. We also do coaching sessions right on stream. Streams are from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. every night, Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. So come by, check it out. Really friendly, very chill community. And if you want some one-on-one feedback on your gameplay, then that's just $25 for non-members and $20 for members. So if you want to help support the channel, get a little feedback, you can do that as well. And then we have a lot of free content as well on the channel. All of these guides are free for everyone else. You can always access it. We have dozens and dozens of champion guides, topical guides about macro, micro, in-depth tier lists all the time. We've got over 200 coaching sessions that are in a playlist you can go through, learn more about your favorite champions. All of that's free as well. For everyone else out there, so be sure to check out all the content. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. Alright, so Pyke was very oppressive. He was banned a lot in Season 9, but they did make a few changes to him that kind of pulled him out of the meta a little bit, but he is still viable, is still decent. He's just not nearly as powerful as he was. So the first few changes is to catch you up to speed if you haven't played Pyke in a while. They did lower his health growth a little bit. It's not a huge deal. At level 5, you're going to be missing 50 health. That does matter, but that's not a massive deal. This, however, is a pretty big deal, losing the regeneration. So around level 5 or 6, it's now going to be 30%. And then over here, it was 42%. So losing out on 12% regeneration off your grayskin kind of in that mid-game does make you a lot more susceptible to poke champions. And there are a lot of poke champions out there right now. You've got Jhin, Misfortune, Caitlyn, Senna. All of these ADCs have a lot of range and they have a lot of poke. So that meta's not been very kind for him. And then they also changed this around 9:15. Now this was actually pretty positive for Pyke, so you can't use the ultimate to do a lot of damage anymore. It's pretty much just for executes, but you get a ton of gold if you do get those executes. That's part of what made him very popular around 9:14. But then this is what sort of pushed him out of the meta a little bit. And some other changes, like I said, about the ADCs in the meta as well. But the nerf to Conquer really hurt him a lot in the preseason also, because it gives out far, far less flat resistances. That's going to make you a lot squishier on all ends, particularly against other tank type of champions who are still very popular. Your Nautiluses, your Leonas, things like that. And that's also why it's a little bit tougher in this meta right now for him, because those champs are still very popular. However, he is very good against things like Janna, because his execute goes straight through shields, so Janna doesn't do anything about it, so he's a good pick there. Soraka's a little more tricky for him to take down, because that heal can pull people out of execute range, and if you don't execute him because of this change back on 9:14, then he's not going to do very much damage at all if he doesn't get the execute. So Soraka's tough, but Janna's good, and a lot of the other kind of squishy champions are good. But as we can see kind of in the meta here, if we look at and his win rate, by the way, is like 49%, or 48.5%. So I didn't think that the changes were going to be that big of a deal, because he used to be like 53%, but it did end up knocking about 4% off of him when they did the regen. I think a lot of it was kind of that meta stuff that I'm talking about too. So the most popular picks right now are still going to be, Nautilus, Thresh is up there. Pyke is still pretty popular. He's very good against Blitz, because he can dodge Blitz hooks pretty well, which is pretty nice. The Senna, I haven't really played that matchup from the Pyke side. She's got a lot of poke, but if you get a hold of her, you can probably kill her. And then Thresh, if it's a good Thresh player, can be rough, because Thresh can flay people back when you're trying to engage on them with the E. So that's kind of a skill matchup, but overall, that's Pyke's basic position in the meta right now. Also, he doesn't have a lot of Waveclear, and a lot right now is about push and roam, and they nerfed his Q's ability to Waveclear. He was never amazing at Waveclear. That was mostly hitting like mid lane Pyke and top lane Pyke, but you know, in a meta right now, it's dominated by, you know, push in a tower, rotate, get dragons, get scuttles, get deep wards, in the enemy jungle, that type of stuff. Then he's very good at roaming. He's very good at vision, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But he's not very good at wave clear, so it's difficult for him to get priority. But if you pair him together with something like a Misfortune, who you know, can push in pretty well and harass, and she herself can rotate really quickly to help complement his roam, then that could be pretty good. Okay, but let's go ahead and start talking about his abilities a little bit here, since we were kind of talking about his meta position. And the sites that I use, people ask me sometimes, they're up here. It's basically League Wiki, Lolalytics, U.GG, and then Wiki again, and then RiftKit to talk about the map stuff at the end of the video. Or all that I use, all of those are free, so you can use those anytime you want to kind of theory craft champions. Okay, so how does Pyke work? Well, the main thing to note about him is that he can't gain any health from items. So if you get health from items, then it converts over to AD at an equivalent rate. So if you get 400 gold worth of health, it's going to give you, I believe, 400 gold. Unless I don't think they change that this year, but it's going to give you 400 gold equivalent in AD. So that means that it's very hard to go tank Pyke. Earlier on, when he was very first released, you could do that because the base damage on his abilities were really high, much higher than they are now. And so you'd see people going like Frozen Heart Pyke and things like that. But that was really oppressive. And they nerfed that out pretty quickly by lowering his base damage, but then increasing his scaling. So it's basically forcing him, if he wants to do damage, it forces him to have to get 80 items. So right now, you pretty much have to go lethality. And that's both kind of a blessing and a curse, which we'll talk about here in a second when we talk about itemization. But so you can't get any health, but he has pretty high base starting health at 600, and then he goes all the way up to 2100, so not that bad. His base regen's not bad either. 7 is okay, considering he has the the gray health, which we'll talk about here in a second, which gives him a lot of resistances. His move speed's kind of on the slow side. You do get mobility boots early on, and you do get a lot of extra speed off of your W, so it's not that bad. And then his flat AD is decent. Okay, then it's got all this other, like, much more technical stuff that's not going to matter for most people. Okay, so Gift of the Drowned Ones. So here it is. Instead, he gains 1 bonus attack damage per 14 health. I think, let's grab my calculator here real quick. I'm pretty sure that's the equivalent. So attack damage is worth 35 a piece, and then health is worth 2.66 per health. So 2.66 times 14. Yeah, it's basically the same. You get 37 gold value off of that. So if you have health, it converts over to 1 attack damage. So I guess you're losing like 2 gold value in terms of health. So, or in terms of if you get bonus health, converting it over to bonus attack damage. So it's not 100% equivalent, but it's pretty close. I think bonus AD is worth that. Let me just double check. It might be 37. Longsword is what it... Well, actually, is it... I don't remember if it's based on Longsword or BF Sword. It might be based on BF Sword. The baseline value for AD. 107. Okay, no, it's gonna be based. It's gonna be based on Longsword. Pull it up real quick because it says BF Sword's 100% efficient. So usually they take the most basic item to figure out how much gold is worth. They take the most basic item. Yeah, it is 35. Okay, so I do know my stuff. It is 35, so you do you lose a little bit there, but you're not gonna be getting a lot of stuff with health anyway, so that's not gonna matter too much. But yeah, you would not want to grab like Warmogs or like, you know, any crazy crap like that to try to get a bunch of AD because it's going to convert at an unfavorable rate. Not like a huge deal, but you are losing, you know, a few percentage points by doing that. Okay. And then every time he gets hit, you store up like a gray health bar. And then, so like if you take a damage, you'll get 100 gray health. You take 100 damage, you get 100 gray health. And then if you, if the enemy loses vision of you, then the gray health will convert over pretty quickly to normal health. Kind of like Tom Kench. So, health bar up to 80 with a cap of 60% of his maximum health. Now, it does have plus 800% of your bonus AD, so the more AD that you have, the more gray health you're going to be able to store up. Or the more, like, maximum health that you're able to store. So if you have 100 bonus AD, then you're going to be able to store up to, like, 980 total health, up to 60% of your max health. So, basically, he just gets a little bit of resistance to poke in the laning phase, although it has been nerfed, like we mentioned before. Okay, Bone Skewer. Now, as far as hooks go, this does require a wind-up time. I think you have to charge it up for half a second, releasing the harpoon within this, hitting the first target. So they will see you charging this up, so that gives them time to counter it. But the animation, once you do have it charged up, is pretty quick. So, like, Thresh has a half a second wind up on his chain when he throws it. But Bone Skewer has the half a second up front, but then once you throw it, it's actually a pretty crisp animation. So you want to try to, like, land this out of bushes if you can, or you can, like, flash, like, you charge it up, and then you flash and throw it. You can just hit it just flat out, but it gives people a lot of counterplay potential to him and this hook. It can go over walls, which is pretty nice, and it pulls people to you, so you don't have to go to them if you don't want to. So that does make him a little bit safer than something like a Nautilus or a Leona, who pretty much have to go all the way in. Leona's like 100% over to them with her E, and Nautilus meets them halfway. Whereas Bone Skewer is going to pull them pretty close to you. And you can pull people over walls, dragon pits, baron pits, and things like that. So that's pretty handy. Whereas Nautilus can't throw his hook through walls, Leona can't do that, and Thresh can't pull people over walls as well. So that's a pretty nice feature of his hook. Blitz can do it. But there aren't many champions that can do that. So he has a nice nice hook. It does have a fairly slender hitbox. It's a little bit wider than like Leona's, but it's not nearly as wide as Nautilus or Blitzcrank. It's probably comparable to Thresh. It might be a little bit of a smaller hitbox than Thresh, but it's a pretty good quality hook overall. Does decent damage on it. And it does slow them down by 90% for 1 second too. So it makes it really easy to hit your E if you want to do that combo, although you don't have to do the combo. Another thing that you can do is if you just want a really quick damage, you can just tap it once really quickly and it'll just do like a stab just to make sure that you're going to be able to hit them. Now that stab only does damage to the first target hit, which means that you can't wave clear with it very easily. So hitting the closest enemy. Now, it does prioritize champion, so if you do stab somebody through a minion wave, it will hit a champion. But it's not going to hit everything like it used to be able to do. Okay, and you do get a refund if you don't end up throwing it overall. So it's pretty good. It also does have a pretty low cooldown for a hook. You know, like Blitzcrank's hook at early level is like 20 seconds. I think Nautilus is pretty close to 20. Thresh is pretty close to 20. So all of those have really long wind-up times, whereas his is 12 seconds. So you can throw more hooks if you want to be really aggressive with it. And it only costs 70 mana, which is pretty decent. I mean, Blitz hook's like 100 mana. I think that Thresh and Nautilus are similar to 70 mana. So as far as hooks go, it's a pretty good little hook. It's a pretty good hook. Now, the other stuff that makes him really unique compared to other supports are the Ghost Water Dive is one. So you can go invisible. Your camouflage, just like a Twitch, if you get really close to people, and you'll see like a radius around you. If you get close, then it's going to alert them, and they will be able to see you if you get really close. But it does allow you to sneak around, get past wards, and just come at people from weird angles that they wouldn't expect otherwise. And you do get a lot of bonus movement speed from it too. So it starts off, typically I think people are maxing this second. Last time I looked, it's still a second on the max, although you could max Phantom Undertow second if you want to. It's kind of debatable. Like, this is going to give you more damage with this, but this is going to give you more movement speed and put it on a lower cooldown. So it just kind of depends on what you want. I mean, that extra damage there is pretty good, though. You know, the extra 120 damage is pretty handy. But yeah, it just allows you to zip around the map really quickly, even if you only have 1 point in it. The 40% plus 1.5% of your lethality. So just like one lethality item will give you an extra 30% movement speed. So when you combine this with mobility boots, and if you have Ghost Blade, you can move around the map faster than any other support. It's great for rotations. If there's just kind of a Clown Fiesta skirmishing style of game going on, then he's going to be really, really good at that. So you can run people down. This is also great for warding because you can sneak into the enemy jungle if you're not sure where their wards are. You can W, sneak into their jungle, get around the wards, and then place your wards in the bushes. If you place a ward, it does not reveal you. If you attack a ward, it'll reveal you. But you can potentially walk past any green wards that they have, place your wards in bushes, and get out, and then they won't see you if you're not sure where they're warded, or if you don't have a sweeper or any means to get rid of their wards. That's a good way to get around it. Now, control wards will still see you, just like a Twitch, so you have to be careful, although it will tell you if they see you. So if you walk past a control ward in a bush while you're W'd, you know, it'll have a little exclamation point over your head, and it'll let you know where the ward is. So be sure to pay attention to that, but it's really good for rotations, really good for like getting back to lane, getting really good back timings, great for warding. So, and just because it speeds you up, you can just escape a lot of stuff too. You're getting ganked. He's one of the hardest supports in the game to gank because he gets that speed up from Ghost Water Dive, and he also has the Phantom Undertow, which we'll talk about here in a second. So that does allow him to be really aggressive with his warding because you can go in invisible, and then even if they spot you out for some reason, maybe you walk over a control ward and the jungler's there, you can probably still get away with Phantom Undertow. So it allows you to safely get really deep wards that almost no other support can get. So you can get in there, get those early deep, you know, wards on there. If you're on red side, you can get it near their raptors, near their golems, or near their red buff. And if you're on blue side, you can go in there and get it around the blue golem and maybe around the wolves pretty safely. So he is one of the best vision control supports out there for that reason. Phantom Undertow is a fantastic sort of flexible ability. So it does stun people for 1.25 seconds. Or for I thought it was 1.1 seconds. Stunning the enemies for 1.25 seconds. Then every 10 lethality that you have. So if you have one lethality item, it'll be an extra 0.2. Kind of in the early game. Does decent damage. It's on a static 15-second cooldown, or on a non-scaling 15-second cooldown. And I need to put the cap on that. So getting extra points doesn't give you that. It does give you the extra damage, which is nice, but it does not lower the cooldown. So pretty good ability. You can get the stun. You know, the most obvious use of this is you hook somebody and then you go for the Phantom Undertow to get the stun on them. You don't always have to do that, though. Keep in mind, if you hook somebody and it's dangerous, you don't always have to go for the all-in, because he is very squishy. So if you do go for the all-in, you might get blown up. So if you happen to hook that Leona or something, they have like Leona Draven, you don't have to go in and try to stun the Leona, okay? You can be like, oops, I hooked Leona. I don't want that, because they're going to be able to turn around and kill me. So just keep that in mind. You know, make some smart decisions out there. You don't have to full combo them. Just like with Thresh, you don't have to take every hook if you don't want to. You can just use it to get a little bit of poke on somebody, or to try to get them to blow their flash. So you don't have to follow up. But you can with the E. Another trick that you'll see Pykes do a lot with this is you E first. It gives you the movement, and then the Phantom will like run after you really quick after that, and it stuns anyone that goes. So what you can do is you can E in a certain direction, you can E forward, and then as the Phantom is coming back to you, then you can flash right on the other side of somebody, like at the very last moment, and it'll still stun them. So a popular trick would be then, you know, just like E forward, like you're not going to be able to hit them, and then at the last moment you flash, get the stun. Or if you hook them and then you E forward and they flash out of it, you can flash after them and still get the stun anyway. So there's a pretty good amount of gamesmanship you can do there, right? They can outplay you, but you can also outplay them with the Phantom Undertow. So it's pretty good game design. And then probably his most famous ability is Death from Below. You execute people when they're at a flat amount of health. And that does scale with lethality, and it does scale with bonus AD. So if you have, you know, 20 lethality in the early game, you'll get an extra 30 damage on it. So that's pretty good. And it's 80% of your bonus AD. Now, they did nerf this amount a while back. I think it used to be like 300. But anyways, it's a pretty good chunk, right? So like at level 11, you'd be 430, and with all of your items and things like that, you'd probably get up to like 500 or 600. Now, keep in mind, they can outplay this fairly often. The higher the elo is, the more likely it is someone can outplay this. So, you really need to know and track the status of cooldowns. Like, you need to know if they have flash. You need to know if they have heal. You need to be careful if they have something like a Soraka that can heal them out of execute range. But if you do land this, you can get multiple kills and snowball the game out of control. So basically, if you execute someone, it resets. It doesn't reset the cooldown, but you can use it again for free for like 30 seconds, 20 seconds, with no cost. So it doesn't cost you any extra mana every time you do it. And it's okay to KS your team with this because they're going to get the same amount of gold that they would have gotten if they killed. So really, a lot of times, it's kind of up to you. You can make a decision on this, but a lot of times, if you can KS with this, I would probably KS with this because it's going to give you a lot of extra gold if you do that. So that's handy, and it also keeps your teammates from going on sprees. So since you're a pretty safe champion, ideally, if you're playing Pyke correctly with Ghostwater Dive, Undertow, and things like that, it's probably better if the spree is on you rather than the AD carry because they're going to be less likely to kill you if you're making good decisions. So it puts you on the spree so that it's less likely they're going to get the shutdown, which is nice. But, the main reason, it just gives your team a lot more gold. Now, if you're about to get into a big fight for an objective or something, like maybe Baron's coming up in 30 seconds, you guys pick someone off, like the support, and they're like 100% dead, there's no way they're getting away, maybe don't KS that because you might need that ultimate for the team fight. So, you got to make some decisions. If there is a big fight coming up within the next couple of minutes, maybe don't KS if it's like a 100% your team's going to kill them no matter what. But if there's not going to be a lot going on for the next minute, even if they're 100% dead, I just go ahead and do it just so that you give your team a lot of extra gold because it's basically an entire kill's worth of extra gold. It's a lot of gold that you get, and your items are pretty expensive. So, you got to make the call on that, but I would say, just be careful and look at the mini-map too. Just see if somebody's low. Like, look and see if that mid laner's low or whatever, and you can rotate up there and clean up those kills, right? Or if, like, mid lane's getting into a big fight, just go ahead, you got your Moby boots, just ping your bot lane back, press W, and just zip over there up the river and just see if you can get some cleanups. So you always want to be vigilant. You want to look for fights, and you're just like a vulture. You're just going in there, picking up the scraps a lot of time in solo queue because people just overchase. They take too many tower shots. They'll chase, like, while they're low through the enemy jungle. You guys know how solo queue is. And he's one of the best people at cleaning that up. But you got to be able to look at the mini-map and read the situation, and you got to get there. So you want to get those Moby boots, and you want to make those rotations and try to get those cleanup kills too. Okay. So that's basically how Pyke works. Fantastic mobility, fantastic roaming, excellent snowball potential, great cleanup potential with deaths from below. But he is going to be on the squishy side. He can't build any extra health. You can't really itemize into defensive items like armor and things like that anymore just because of the way he's designed. And they did nerf Conquer, which was huge because he was one of the biggest beneficiaries of Conquer since he has pretty high base health, but he has fairly low resistances. He really abused Conquer quite a bit. So that's kind of his position in the meta. He's squishy, he's very high risk, but he does have a lot of potential to snowball really hard. So great mobility, great warding, great roaming, very strong, well, not very strong, but pretty strong engage, great snowball potential, but has limited defensive tools, so he doesn't have a lot of stuff that makes him tanky, and he can't really peel for his allies very well. Yes, you can, like, use that hook to try to pull somebody off of your AD carry, but sometimes that's just really awkward. Like, if you're next to your AD carry and you try to pull them off, sometimes you could actually pull them closer to your AD carry with that hook, right? So you might be able to pull off something fancy like E to stun somebody and then run in the opposite direction and then hook them, like, back. But then that's going to put you in a really compromised position as well because you're going to be offsides to pull them off of your AD carry. So you can use some defensive tools, but it's just a little awkward. Like, he doesn't have as many defensive tools. He doesn't have as much CC as Leona and Nautilus. And he doesn't have, like, Thresh's Flay and Lantern and slow with his ult. So he's got great offense, but his defense is a little shaky. He's very squishy for an engaged champion. Leona and Nautilus are going to be far tankier than he is. and they're going to be able to build tank items. And then Thresh is typically, with most builds, probably going to be a little bit tankier than Pyke is as well. So keep that in mind. The enemy has a lot of potential to outplay your stuff too. You know, you've got a half a second delay on your hook. There's a delay on your Phantom Undertow, so they can flash out of it or dash out of it. Now, you can flash too while that's going on, but, you know, there's a little game of cat and mouse there. They can potentially outplay that, and they can outplay your death from below. And you'll see this a lot if you're not keeping track of flashes and heals. You know, you'll try to death from below, and the ADC will heal out of range, or, you know, you'll try to ult somebody, and they'll flash and dodge it, or they'll just do their little dash and dodge it. So there's a lot of outplay potential, so you got to really practice him and kind of know what you're doing, or you're going to get outplayed. And he gets punished hard if he misses his ult, or if he like misses a stun or something. He gets punished really hard typically. And his items are really expensive. We'll talk about the items here in a second, but his itemization is not phenomenal. The new Umbral item is pretty solid for him, but in general, the enchanters are still going to have much cheaper items, and even the tanks are going to have much cheaper, more powerful items. So that kind of puts him in a really awkward position, particularly in kind of early in the mid game, if he doesn't get a lot of kills in Snowball. So in that sense, his itemization is very similar to something like a Zyra or a Brand, who really needs to apply pressure, get advantages in Snowball, but it's a lot harder for him because he doesn't have a lot of like lane poke and lane pressure in that sense. He's got to all in. And, you know, he's really got to outplay the opponent and start getting some extra gold with his ults almost immediately when he gets 6 in order to keep up item-wise. Okay, so recommended runes. I still think you go Aftershock. I think you're probably, a lot of the time, it's going to be too squishy without it, even though it has been nerfed a lot. And then Demolish. There's just not really anything else great there. You don't have a shield, so Shield Bash doesn't make sense. Font of Life doesn't really make sense, so you're just kind of stuck with Demolish. You're not going to use it a ton in your own lane because a lot of times you're not going to have enough priority to go threaten under tower. But if you do roam and you get kills off of roams, or you force other people to back, like the mid laner to back, then you can potentially get some extra plates. So it does come in handy if you roam successfully. Or if you do get kills bot lane, obviously it's going to come into play there. Bone Plating helps you out with early all-ins. You could also do Conditioning, which will make you a little bit more tanky after 10 minutes. You do kind of need to snowball early. It just depends. If Bone Plating is going to get picked off, is going to get poked off of you early, if you're against like a Senna Caitlyn lane, I wouldn't do Bone Plating. I just go for Conditioning. But if you're against like a Leona Nautilus lane or something that's like gonna, you know, all in you early, then Bone Plating might be a little bit better. Then it's your choice. You can do Revitalize or Unflinching if they have a lot of CC. If they have the Nautilus or the Leona, you probably need to do Unflinching. But Revitalize is going to give you a lot more healing off of your passive. So it's kind of up to you what you want to do with that. Revitalize is going to be better against a poke lane. And Unflinching is going to be better against an all-in lane. With Bone Plating as well, you could also take Second Wind instead, which is not like super common on him. But if you are against those poke lanes, Zyra, you know, Soraka, Lux, things like that, then Second Wind can be pretty good too. And then I think that Ghost Poro, Ultimate Hunter is the way to go. A lot of people haven't really changed up their style that much. They're still going like the old Legend Tenacity, Presence of Mind. I don't really like this that much. His mana cost, I mean, he does have some mana cost to his stuff, but like his ult is free on multiple casts, so you're not going to run out of mana that way. You don't buy mana items, so that can be kind of awkward. But it doesn't give you the CDR on your ult anymore. I don't know. I'm skeptical of this. Getting the extra 500 mana is good. I'd have to play it. I honestly haven't. I played Pyke a good chunk in the middle of the season, but I haven't played him in a while. So I'd have to see how this works. And I haven't played against him that often either. My instinct is this is probably not that great, although there are a decent chunk of supports that are doing it. But there are also supports that are doing kind of what I'm recommending here too. Like you've got Mad Life here doing Ultimate Hunter and Cheap Shot. So, and a lot of them are doing that. You've got Big doing a similar thing. You've got He doing a similar thing. So I think that Ult Hunter is where you want to be. That's a really like disrespected rune. I mean, 25% cooldown on your ult is huge on an ult as powerful as Pyke's. And you really need that money off of that ult to get your items. So I would go for that. And I think a lot of people don't understand or respect Ghost Poro. Like, yeah, the Poro itself is not amazing. It is good, like, early on to keep to keep your wards up longer, especially before you transform your ward items. You can watch dragons easier, you can watch raptors easier. So that part is pretty nice. But even in the mid game, like, you get the equivalent of 30 adaptive damage, which is a lot. That's like over 600 gold worth of value, usually around 15 to 20 minutes if you're just constantly placing your wards down and they're not sweeping your wards. It's pretty good. So pros may not go Ghost Poro that much because the enemy's almost always going to be sweeping up your wards because everybody's buying pink wards, everyone's sweeping. You know, the junglers are even going to get early sweepers and things like that. But, you know, if you're playing down like platinum, gold, silver, all that kind of stuff, and they're not going to clear out your wards, I would go ahead and go Ghost Poro. Ghost Poro is particularly good on Pyke too because, remember, you can get those deep wards fairly easily, and the Poro just extends the timer on those wards. So, for example, and we'll do more, I'll talk about this more in the laning portion of the video here in just a second, but, like, you could, for instance, you get priority down here. Let's say that you push them in or whatever. They're pushing in their tower with a big wave here. They're kind of pinned in. They don't have a control ward in this bush yet. You can run up here and then just like W, you know, run in here and then just drop a ward, like even just ward like here, and just like here if you can get it. Like, you can get in here, drop all 3 of those wards, and then just like E back out, you know, just like over this pit, and then just run back to your team. And you can probably get there by the time they clear that ward and the wave is right back here. Because he's so fast. The W is not only invisible, it gives you a ton of movement speed. So you can just zip right up here. You can very easily grab these 2 if you do that. And, like, even if their jungler's there, it's like, you know, you zip over here. You see, like, the jungler clearing red when you pop it in this bush. Like, no problem. Just ward it, dash over the wall, you're out. You know? And so when you can do that, when you can get those really deep wards, that Ghost Poro extends the ward timer by like a minute or longer. In addition to giving you over 600 gold worth of adaptive damage. Because a lot of people forget that. They just don't read that text. Like, gives an extra 6 bonus attack damage and then 18 bonus attack damage when it's stacked up. So, and typically in my experience, you fully stack around 15 to 20 minutes. So it's like extra vision plus a better gathering storm all rolled into one rune. Now, no other role except for support will get this rune, but it's particularly good on support because you have the warding item, which allows you to get a lot of wards down, and they're going to expire fairly often. So that's what I would get. Some people still do like eyeball collection. Like, that's pretty good if you are constantly sweeping enemy wards. Actually, that's not even for wards anymore. That's just for killing champions and getting assists on champions. So if you're in a really bloody elo, maybe you can stack that one up faster, but I doubt it. Ghost Poro's better, and then zombie ward's the one where you take down enemy wards. Summons a friendly ward, gain every zombie ward spawned up to 10. So you have to kill basically 10 wards in order to get that. So it's like, is it easier to kill 10 wards or to, you know, set down like 10 of your own wards, you know? And if they spot it, if the Ghost Poro spots somebody, then you get extra stacks off of that. So you can get 2 stacks. So if you put, and they're going to have to get spotted, right? So if you have a ward on their golems, unless they just don't want to do golems, like, you're probably going to spot them. Like, they might be able to pull the golems out of the pit where they're not going to get spotted, but most people are just going to have to, or if you like have it sitting right here, especially if it's a melee jungler like the Ghost Poro, they're going to have to walk through it, you know, to go get the Wraith. So I think it's a really underappreciated rune. It's very strong. So that's what I recommend. A couple of other options there. Obviously, you can do the Presence of Mind Tenacity. If they have a Nautilus or a Leona, maybe that makes more sense, you know, for the tenacity portion of it. Obviously, there are smart players doing that, like Dardoch got filled as support, I guess. Went 10-1 with that build, so, you know, it's possible you can do that. Another option that a few people are trying out is this Predator version here, which is interesting. I haven't tried this out. I mean, all of these are pretty good. Like, Sudden Impact's good. It gives you extra lethality whenever you dash. And you can go for this instead of Ghost Poro as well. I think Ghost Poro is probably stronger, but that's pretty good too. And, you know, you have Cheap Shot as well, which is another one that you saw some people getting. I think that's like too early game. Like, I would probably just go for the Ghost Poro, but this is pretty good. I mean, this will allow you to roam, basically, if you're just going to roam 24/7. One problem with this, though, is this alerts them that you're roaming. So they see that little wolf over their head, and they know that you're roaming. So that's the worst part about this, is because, you know, Pyke's already really sneaky. Like, he's got invisibility. He's already extremely fast. So you don't really need the speed off of this. Like, you're going to get to him, and you're probably going to be able to sneak over a bunch of wards. So to me, setting this up is giving yourself away when you don't have to. So I'm not a big fan of that, although obviously Lehens is one of the best supports in the world, and he's doing it. But he did go 0-10 in that game. And, you know, he just tries out a bunch of stuff. So just because he's doing it doesn't necessarily mean it's good. It just means, you know, he's always looking for the next big thing, right? So he has been trying it out sometimes. So you can toy around with that if you want, but most people are going Aftershock, and I think that's probably correct. And then it's sort of your choice if you want the Presence of Mind build or if you want the Ult Hunter build. Okay. And then recommended items. His items are pretty standard. There's not a lot of wiggle room on them. There's a little bit. So you always want the Relic Shield, the thing that gives you the AD and the health. I would go for the one where you build up stacks by last hitting. The thing that turns into Bulwark eventually. You can go for the one where you harass, like the AD Frostfang version, but I wouldn't do it. I would just do the one where you hit the minions, because it's just going to be too hard to harass with him as melee. So I would just do the Relic Shield one that turns into Bulwark. And then Umbral is what I would go first. That's what most people are going for, which is the new item they just added in the preseason. It's 2,400 gold, which is a godsend for Pyke, because all of the rest of his items are like 2,900 gold. So this is much cheaper, much more affordable, and it gives you a really early sweeper, so that when an enemy ward spots you, you can go through and clear that out. Now, this might be a reason to go for zombie wards. The zombie ward could be legit on him as well, because you do get you basically have 2 sweepers and you have control wards. So maybe zombie ward. I still like Ghost Poro, because it gives you extra zombie ward does give you extra vision too for a little bit, but both of them are good. I like Ghost Poro, but because you have Umbral, maybe zombie ward could be a better choice here, or at least comparable. It's kind of low on the lethality side. It's only got 12 lethality, but it does have 50 attack damage and 10% cooldown reduction, so it's only 83% gold efficient, which, I mean, this is a good item. I had someone ask me if this is the most OP support item in the game. I was like, absolutely not. If you look at something like Ardent Sensor, you know, you're going to be pushing 200 or 300% gold efficiency on that item, and this doesn't even crack 100%. So it's still something that you need to get. It's nice. It looks good on paper, but you are still paying a pretty high price for the sweep ability. But that is nice. You know, having an extra sweeper, having that extra vision control just sort of solidifies him as the king of vision with the other stuff that I talked about, how he can place those deep wards so easily. So you do need to get that. It is going to be solid. Now, remember that if you run over a ward when you're invisible, it's not going to activate this, I'm pretty sure. So keep that in mind. It's only when a ward spots you. But that's still good. And then the other, this is where you get a little bit of flexibility here, whether you go Youmuu's Ghostblade or Dustblade. I think Ghostblade would be where I would be. It doubles down on your mobility, allows you to roam around the map a lot faster, gives you that active on a fairly low cooldown. So I would just double down on the speed and probably do Ghostblade. You know, it's up to you. As far as overall gold efficiency goes, it's only 79% efficient. Now, out of combat, it turns to like 95% efficient when you get the extra movement speed. So once again, not a super efficient item. It's very expensive at 2,900 gold. So this is why, you know, Pyke needs the extra gold. This is why you don't see a lot of other like AD lethality supports other than like Senna, for different reasons we won't go into in this video. This is why you don't see a lot of other AD supports, is because the items are just too expensive and they're inefficient compared to enchanter items. But that one's pretty solid. The other option usually is Dustblade, and that's going to be less efficient. Now, that doesn't include the Night Stalker, though. So basically, this is going to give you much higher burst, and you know, the fact that you can use this multiple times in a fight, you get a hook on somebody, you know, you auto attack them, get that extra damage, get that stun, you know, E into them, and then you can just like go into a bush or go invisible and then pop back out of invisibility, and you know, trigger Dustblade again. So there's a lot of ways you can trigger this for that extra damage. So it just kind of comes down to, do you want the extra burst damage, which can be really good, or do you want the extra mobility off of Ghostblade? Both of them are good in different situations. I'm not sure. It looks like most people, it's close. It looks like there's just a pinch more people that go Dustblade next, 43% versus 40% for Ghostblade, as far as like high-end challenger players go. But either one's going to be pretty solid. It's just, do you want the mobility or do you want the higher burst damage? If your team's having a hard time killing people, you might need to go Dustblade. If your team is, if there's just people just running around fighting all the time and it's like a super bloody game, maybe go Ghostblade so you can get those rotations and get the cleanup kills faster. I would personally go Ghostblade in most games, but it's up to you. And then the other kind of more situational item is Edge of Night. Now, this item is not very efficient. Like, it is a little bit more efficient than the other items, but it does not have CDR on it, which is really rough, and the lethality is really low. Now, health is okay, but once again, remember, you're losing some value off of health. They did give it a little bit more attack damage. It does give you a spell shield that blocks the next enemy ability. So that's good if they have like hard engage, like a Blitz hook or a Nautilus hook or whatever. But the thing is, like, you should be able to dodge that anyways. You've got your W, you have a ton of movement speed off of like between mobility boots, your W, your Ghostblade. You better be able to dodge skill shots of that stuff. You also have your E to be able to dash to dodge things. So you have a lot of tools that's already going to make you like have a lot of outplay potential to the enemy skills. So I wouldn't recommend going this most of the time unless they have some kind of point click. Maybe they've got a Fiddlesticks or something, or like a Malzahar. Maybe Nautilus, if Nautilus keeps using his ultimate on you for some reason. It's extremely situational. I would not go that unless it's like you already have the other two items. You already have Ghostblade, Dustblade. Now, Sanguine Blade, I wouldn't do it. I just don't think this is great for support. They did nerf it as well. This can become super gold efficient, but only if you're getting like 1v1s against people. And only if you're like using attack speed a lot. So it's an interesting item, but I just don't think it's really well designed for supports. So I wouldn't go for that. You can go for something like a GA if you want to, but it's really rare. You see, most people don't get that, and it's just too defensive. You know, you really don't need to be getting armor with Pyke. Like, you're so agile, you need to just not die. Like, you need to be able to reposition. You have all the tools to dodge most things, and to pick really good fights with your mobility and your hook, your engage, and stuff like that. So you really shouldn't need Guardian Angel. Although, if you're like super rich and you need a final item, Guardian Angel can be okay. But yeah, I would go like some combination of Umbral start almost always, and then either Dustblade or Ghostblade, and then whichever one you didn't get second, get it third, and the game's probably going to be over by then. Okay, so let's finish the video talking about some laning, like how you should be positioning, what you should be doing in the lane here real quick. So remember, the name of the game with Pyke, as with a lot of these kind of champions, are that you need to try to get really good roams off. So, and he does have a lot of great mobility to do that. He just doesn't have a lot of Waveclear to do that. So that can be a little awkward. But first back, you need to be getting mobility boots. Like, that's your number one item. And that is pretty nice. In the very early game, it is cool that you don't have to upgrade your relic item. And that's, depending on your back timing, you might be able to save the full 900 in order to get your mobility boots flat out, which would be really handy. I think that's... Your ADC is probably going to want to back for a BF sword earlier, unless they are just terrible at last hitting. They're probably going to back and get their BF sword before you complete your mobility boots. That can be a little awkward. But you can always just get like some brown boots and like maybe a couple of long swords or something. But you want to be getting those mobility boots as early as you can, preferably. Sadie, calm down. You want to be getting those mobility boots, and then getting down there, and as soon as, like, every time you back, just really try to exploit the fact that you have extremely high mobility and that you're invisible, right? So, like, try to come through here, buy a bunch of pink wards, you know, try to donate pink wards for your team. This is a really good one, especially if your mid laner's not buying pinks. You can put one right there. If you can get a really deep pink ward in, like if you're on blue side, getting one like right there can be pretty good. There's a new bush here, which is pretty decent for pink wards as well. Now, this is like a more defensive pink ward bush if, you know, the enemy, if you can't really get deep wards. I think if you're someone like Pyke, you should try to get this one right here as much as possible, because that's one that people do not scout out a lot, and it gives you a lot of valuable vision, especially like if you put it like right here, on that corner. It's going to be difficult to tell, but you can probably see most junglers coming in that way, and then you'll see them at this intersection as well. So that'll also track their pathing if they're going for wolves, which is really handy. So on blue side, I would try to go through, you know, every time you back, just come through here and see if you can make a play on mid. You know, make sure that you have a sweeper going through here. You can pink the pixel bush as well. A lot of people do check that. But just see if you can come through, make a play on mid lane. If they're not there, you know, just come through and like get these wards down and then come back through here. So really exploit the fact that you have good vision. Other places to put wards, you know, you can put a green ward there, which is handy. The green ward, like, really right there is very good. If you're too scared to go that deep, you can put one here. That's kind of where you want to be. And then if you do need to get dragon wards in, if you need to be a little bit more defensive, if your jungler is just not playing around bottom at all, you can put it here. But ideally, because you're Pyke, because you can get deep wards, you should be putting them deeper in there. You can also throw one over, like, directly on the wolf if you want. So if we just pull out a little bit of that there, then, like, some of the best places are just, like, ward here, especially if you have Ghost Poro, because you'll get extended vision there. So, you know, a nice path is just kind of rolling through here. If we want to, drop a pink ward here. Come through, try to make a play here, see if you can kill him. If you can't get him, no big deal, run through here, just drop a ward over this wall, drop a ward over this wall right here, and then just go proceed back to bottom. Then you can use your third ward, you know, wherever you want. You could maybe a ward like here or something, just over this wall. So yeah, make sure that you're going in, getting those rotations, especially on back timings. Whenever your ADC is backed, you need to do that. Because you're not going to probably, it depends on the matchup and the elo bracket and things like that, but you're probably not going to have a ton of ability to do that in the laning phase itself, because you're going to have a hard time getting priority. So unless they pick something really weak early game, like Kaisa, Vayne, Ezreal, something like that, which you still do see those, but those are less popular than they were. If you can push them in, then that's awesome. You know, then you can just roam and get free roams middle. But since Pyke doesn't have, like, a ton of pressure in lane, he doesn't have a ton of poke, he doesn't have a lot of wave clear, you know, the more likely scenario is you're going to be getting pushed in. So keep track of that. And that's a lot harder to roam. Now, you can still do it. You know, if your ADC is, like, here farming really close and you see, you know, there's going to be a big fight coming in here. So, like, maybe your mid laner has this warded over here, and you see enemy junglers like rolling up here, and you see like your junglers like rolling up over here, or they're like doing this, and you're like, okay, it's about to go down mid lane. You see their jungler making a move, maybe your mid laner's a little overextended like this, then you can just you know, don't be afraid to just pop out of this lane and just run up here as fast as you can and try to see if you can get some cleanup. So you will miss a wave doing that, but you're also going to catch experience in the mid wave, or in the middle lane off of that minion wave. And you have a high potential that you're going to be able to get some cleanup kills. So really take advantage of that mobility and just run straight through there if you can. Now, your ADC is going to be a little vulnerable in that position, but at least they have the tower there. It's unlikely they're going to dive in the early game. If they do have something like a Leona or a Nautilus, that could be a problem, but I would just be looking for those roams anyways. It's, like I said, it's a lot harder if you're pushed into your tower, because you're guaranteed to miss stuff, but I think you just have to take that risk as Pyke. Now, if you're on the other side, if you're on the red side here, then, you know, the places that you want to be looking for to get these wards. And this is a little bit harder because they're almost always going to have this bush pinked. So it is going to be a bit tougher to get wards here versus like this is rarely pinked. There are some people these days that are like pinking this, but even still, like they're not going to be able to rotate as fast. Like if you're on blue side, they're not going to be able to get over here and try to get you when you ward this and this, right? Like they're going to be too slow to catch you if you're Pyke most of the time, right? But like right here, if you're on the if you're on red side and they have this pinked, then they will definitely be able to collapse on you. So you need to be careful because if, you know, even if you have them pushed into like right here and you try to run up through here to get these deep wards, they're going to be able to rotate potentially and chase you down in the jungle. Now, you might still be able to get out if you're Pyke because you could just jump this wall and run out, but it's certainly going to be a lot more dangerous than previously. So, and you can't really fight like over this pink ward as much. It's a lot tougher as Pyke because you're really close range. You're squishy. If they get a hold of you, you're dead. So, in general, it is going to be a bit tougher to manage the vision here, particularly if you're pushed in. You do not have a lot of good options to get that vision. It's also a lot harder to roam middle from here. So, like right here on this side, you know, if you're pushed in, you just pretty much have a straight path just right up to middle. But if you're here pushed in, then, you know, you got to run like all the way around, which is much, much further. Or, you know, you can run to like right here and then jump through the wall to almost get to a straight line to get there, but then you're not going to have your stun for the fight. So that might be something that you need to do if you have to get there fast and you need to use your ult. But just keep in mind you're not going to have your E cooldown because it's a 15-second cooldown if you do that. So it is a lot harder to rotate on red side, especially for someone like Pyke who's going to have to run through here. And your vision options are a lot weaker too, you know, especially if you're pushed in. You're going to have to just probably just ward here and ward over this wall right here, which kind of sucks. Unless you want to leave your AD carry alone. But it's going to be tougher. However, you do have some options here. So if you're lane, like if you can get like a little bit of priority here, you can push them in a bit. Like one thing you can do is like keep an eye on this blast cone here. If this blast cone is up, what you can do is run through here and then just like E over this wall, and then, you know, just drop your wards, like just drop one here, drop one here. If you have time, you can drop one there. If that's too scary, you could drop it here, and then just blast plant, you know, right back out of there with your E. So that's one way that you can do it. It's just like E forward, W, go invisible, just drop, 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 and then run over here and blast plant back out. So that's one thing you can do. You also can run in this way, invisible, and like drop it here, 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 and then E back out that way. But it's harder on the red side. It's definitely harder on the red side for someone like Pyke who really, really wants to rotate a lot, but who can't get the priority. I mean, with other champions like Nautilus who have an easier time getting priority because he has better wave clear in the early game, then it doesn't matter as much because you're going to be able to keep it in the middle or you're going to have them pushed in, so you're just running up and down the river either way. But if you have to take the back way, it's a lot tougher on red side than having to take, you know, the back way on blue side to get to middle. So just keep that in mind that it is going to be a bit rougher. So I think that Pyke is going to perform a decent chunk better if he's on blue side, especially if he's in a losing lane. But that's pretty much how you want to play the lane, is just try to figure out how you can get roams. When you're coming from base, it's kind of the same drill. You come down here, see if you can get, you know, the ward right here. Make a play on middle, as we said on the other side. See if you can get a kill here. If you can't, then you run in here, you know, drop a ward, drop a ward, drop a ward. But once again, that's going to be a lot harder. You know, dropping these 3 wards, like one. I guess you could just drop a ward here and just drop one over the red pit if you didn't want to go real deep on the golems. And that actually wouldn't be that hard. But it's getting that golem ward when you're coming in off the roam can be a little bit trickier. But I think that's a lot harder than coming in like this way and then dropping a ward like here, here, and here. That's just so much easier because those 3 are all together if you're on blue side, and you can just go boom, boom, boom and have 3 really good wards in there, versus here it's going to take a bit more time. You have to go deeper and it's a lot riskier. So keep that in mind as well. So you know, you're pretty much just going to win off of roams, off of really good vision. It's hard, like, if they have a squishy champ and you're landing a lot of hooks in the landing phase, like Janna or something like that, then you can win fights. But a lot of times, in this meta right now at least, as of the start of Season 10, the end of Season 9 preseason, you're going to have a lot of tough matchups with Leona and Nautilus and things like that. So you really want to look for roams. You really want to look to capitalize on your ults in the mid game. You do not want your ult to be up for very long at all. As soon as your ult is up, you need to be going, looking for plays, looking for kills, getting those skirmishes. You know, if your jungler's invading, trying to go for that. Trying to get like, he's not amazing at team fights, but if you do have good vision control, then you can control objectives because you do have a good hook and you do contribute quite a bit of damage with your rotation, especially with your execute on your ult. So, you know, the dragon control can be tricky if your team's trying to set up for dragon and you're like on blue side. You can come in here, you know, get a couple wards like here and here, and then you can wait like right here with your team when they come down for dragon, and then just hit them with the hook here or hit them with the hook here and go for the kill. So that's kind of how you have to win team fights before they even start. You need to try to pick somebody off, get those kills, and you do that through supreme vision control. And so you should never really have to fight a team fight as Pyke. If you're shot calling correctly, you have really strong vision, you should be able to pick people off. Especially if you're under diamond. You know, it's going to be really disorganized. A lot of times you'll just have the support just coming in, you know, by themselves, thinking, you know, if you're like blue side here and you're all like, you've got this set up, you're ready, you know, to try to contest this dragon. A lot of times, you know, the enemy team are going to be spread out. Maybe mid laners here doing something. Jungler's like maybe coming over. And you've got the support coming down here like, oh, I'm just going to ward dragon and make sure it's safe. Even if they try to ward over this wall, it's just boom. You can grab them right there and get the pick. So some supports will even try to walk all the way down the ramp to go ward the dragon. So as long as you're there first, you need to try to get there like 30 seconds early and set up your wards. Just like spam ping your team. Get them to come there early. And then the best place to hang out for dragon is right here on this wall, because then you have the opportunity to hook either one. Some supports, you know, will think they're slick, like coming in this way. Like most people know not to go in this way. Sometimes supports will still come in here and ward this, but some people think they're slick, like coming in this way to ward, and you can pick them off. But even if they do come in the traditional way, you can hit them there. And then Baron is very similar. You know, when you're trying to bait Baron a lot of times, you can just put, just come over here. Like the best place for baiting Baron is like right here. A lot of times if you're baiting Baron with your team and then you just put like vision, you know, like right here, you have this pinked. A lot of times people will try to come in and get vision. You know, another popular spot the supports will try to do a lot of times are, you know, they'll try to come in this way just to ward over the pit, and then you can get them. And the reason that you want to stand here most of the time is couple fold. So once again, you can hit them if they come with either one of the more popular paths. But then also, they're not going to be able to check this bush as easily. So a lot of people will throw some kind of skill shot in this bush to see if you're there. And then if you're not in the bush, they will just walk on up. Or if they don't hit anything in the bush, then they're just going to walk on up and kill. So that's a really good place to do that. Or, you know, if you want to, a less good place is like here. You can be hanging out here and then just like have this warded and see if they come in. The problem with like hanging out here doing that is that doesn't stop them from coming in here and just warding this and being fairly safe. Now your pink ward will shut it out. You're still in a good position, but it's much better to be right here if you can be. And then on the other, on the flip side, you just do the same kind of dragon treatment. Let me grab this really here. So you just do the dragon treatment over here if you're on a red side, excuse me. You just come over here, same drill, ward, everybody hangs out on this little rock face, and then just whichever way they come in, you just hook them off of this, get a couple of kills, and then go clean out the Baron. So that's the best way to win in solo queue. I talk about that a lot in my warding video and macro video, but those are just the ways that you're going to win as Pyke, because you do not want to do just flat out team fights, because he's not that great at team fights. You want to have the roams, you want to get there early, get the vision, and try to get the picks. Okay, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you'd like to sponsor a guide yourself, just email me at thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com. Let me know what you have in mind. We can set that up. Special thanks again, Nathan. Come by. Check out the stream. Starts around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check out the rest of the content on the channel, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.